The hospital hallway fell silent the moment his hand struck her face. It wasn't just the sound. It was the shock, the disbelief, the collective intake of breath from nurses, interns, security guards, and patients who had never imagined that in a place meant for healing, something so humiliating could happen in broad daylight. She didn't cry. She didn't shout. She didn't even move. She simply looked at him, steady, composed, unshaken, while his authority filled the corridor like smoke. He thought he was teaching her a lesson. What he didn't know was that within hours, his entire career would begin collapsing piece by piece. But before we expose what happened next, make sure you like this video, share it with someone who believes in justice, and subscribe to Black Legacy for more powerful stories that reveal the truth, because this one will stay with you. St. Catherine's Regional Medical Center stood as the crown jewel of the city's healthcare system. Clean marble floors, spotless glass panels, state-of-the-art surgical wings. It was a place where reputations were built and protected fiercely. And at the heart of its surgical department stood Dr. Richard Lawson. He was admired, decorated, feared, a cardiovascular surgeon with 2 decades of experience and a reputation for perfection. His name alone carried weight. Interns whispered about his temper. Nurses learned to move quickly around him. Administrators tolerated his arrogance because his surgical outcomes were exceptional. He believed in discipline, in hierarchy, in knowing your place. And then there was Maya Thompson, 27 years old, newly transferred to the surgical trauma unit. Calm eyes, precise hands, a resume that reflected excellence, though she never boasted about it. She had graduated near the top of her class. She had completed advanced trauma certifications. She had worked in high-pressure emergency wards without complaint. But what stood out most about Maya wasn't her credentials. It was her composure. She walked the hospital corridors with quiet confidence. She listened more than she spoke. And when she did speak, it was with clarity. Still, some staff looked at her differently. Not because she wasn't competent, but because she was young, because she was Black, and because she didn't fit the image some senior staff unconsciously expected when they imagined authority in a hospital setting. Dr. Lawson noticed her on her 3rd day, not because she made a mistake, but because she corrected one. During a pre-op briefing, he misread a medication dosage adjustment. It was minor, subtle, but potentially risky. Maya calmly pointed it out, not publicly, not disrespectfully, but clearly. The room grew quiet. Lawson's jaw tightened. He corrected the chart without acknowledgement. From that moment, something shifted. He began watching her more closely, correcting her tone, questioning her judgment, interrupting her mid-sentence during case discussions. It wasn't loud hostility. It was controlled dominance, and the staff felt it. Some avoided eye contact with her after meetings. Others whispered sympathy but never publicly supported her, because Dr. Lawson controlled recommendations, career paths, opportunities. Meanwhile, Maya never reacted emotionally. She simply did her job flawlessly. What no one in that building knew was that Maya wasn't just another nurse trying to climb the ranks. Her father, Daniel Thompson, had recently been appointed as the new regional director overseeing 3 hospitals, including St. Catherine's. But he had insisted on one thing when he accepted the position: no special treatment for his daughter, no announcements, no influence. He believed in merit, and so did she, which meant when the day of the incident arrived, no one understood who they were truly dealing with. It began with a trauma case, a multi-vehicle collision. 3 patients rushed in simultaneously. Controlled chaos filled the emergency wing. Dr. Lawson was leading the primary surgery. Maya was assigned to assist. Monitors beeped. Orders were given rapidly. Blood pressure fluctuated dangerously. And then, in the middle of preparation, Maya noticed something critical. One of the patients had a documented allergy to a medication that was being prepared for administration. She double-checked the chart, confirmed it, and stepped forward. Calmly, she informed the anesthesiologist first. Then, when Lawson dismissed a concern with a sharp glance, she repeated it louder, firm but professional. Time slowed. The room froze. In front of interns, residents, staff, she had contradicted him again. Lawson's frustration, already simmering from weeks of perceived defiance, boiled over. He accused her of disrupting procedure flow, of undermining authority, of overstepping. The tension in the operating corridor intensified as the patient was stabilized. After the procedure concluded successfully, thanks in part to the medication correction, Lawson stormed into the hallway. Staff followed, and there, under bright hospital lights, surrounded by witnesses, he struck her, a sharp, humiliating slap across the face. Gasps echoed. A security officer shifted uneasily. A nurse in the back instinctively lifted her phone. And Maya? She didn't flinch, didn't retaliate, didn't crumble. She stood straight, arms folded slowly across her chest, eyes locked on his. He continued speaking about insubordination, about discipline, about knowing who was in charge. But something had shifted in the room. For the first time, people weren't just afraid. They were uncomfortable, because what had just happened wasn't discipline. It was abuse, and it felt racial. Subtle prejudice had now become visible. Humiliation had crossed a line. Lawson believed the moment would pass. He believed his status would shield him. But he hadn't noticed three things: the nurse recording, the security camera directly above, and the fact that hospital administration had recently implemented a zero-tolerance workplace violence policy. Within hours, the video began circulating internally, then externally. Staff who had remained silent before now felt protected by evidence. Whispers turned into statements. Statements turned into reports. And for the first time in years, Dr. Lawson was called into an emergency board meeting. He walked in confident. He walked out uncertain. Because seated at the far end of the table was Daniel Thompson, and beside him was Maya. The boardroom atmosphere was suffocating. No raised voices, no dramatic accusations, just facts. The footage played on a large screen, clear, undeniable. The sound of impact echoed louder in the quiet room than it had in the hallway. Lawson attempted justification, spoke of high-pressure environments, of maintaining order, of discipline, but policies were read aloud. Hospital violence guidelines, employee protection statutes, state medical conduct laws. Then came the moment that shifted everything. Daniel Thompson introduced himself formally, not as Maya's father first, but as regional director. He outlined the hospital's values: equity, respect, professional conduct. Then he disclosed his relationship to Maya, not as leverage, but as transparency. The room absorbed it slowly. Lawson's face drained of color. He realized this wasn't a nurse without influence. This wasn't someone who could be silenced. This was someone protected not by power, but by policy, truth, and integrity. An internal investigation had already begun. Multiple staff members had submitted testimonies about patterns of intimidation, microaggressions, targeted hostility. The slap was not an isolated event. It was the breaking point. Lawson's medical license was placed under review pending disciplinary action. He was suspended effective immediately. Security escorted him from the building he once ruled. And the same hallway where he believed he had asserted dominance now witnessed his fall. Maya remained composed through it all. Not vindictive, not triumphant, just steady. Because for her, this wasn't about revenge. It was about dignity. The weeks that followed reshaped St. Catherine's. Mandatory bias training was implemented hospital-wide. Anonymous reporting systems were strengthened. Supervisory oversight policies were revised. Several staff members privately apologized to Maya for their silence. She accepted their words with grace, but reminded them that silence sustains injustice. Her father maintained professional boundaries throughout the investigation. He never interfered, never shielded. He allowed due process to unfold. Because true justice doesn't require favoritism. It requires accountability. Dr. Lawson eventually faced disciplinary action from the medical board. His career, once untouchable, was permanently altered. But this story wasn't just about one doctor losing power. It was about a system being forced to confront bias that had long gone unspoken. It was about a young black nurse refusing to shrink herself to fit someone else's comfort. It was about composure in the face of humiliation. and the quiet strength of knowing your worth. The hallway where the slap echoed became a reminder, not of fear, but of change. Maya continued her work, earned promotions, led training initiatives, and became a symbol of professionalism under pressure, not because of who her father was, but because of who she chose to be. And as her story spread, it sparked conversations far beyond hospital walls, about workplace respect, about racial bias masked as authority, about the power of standing firm without losing dignity. If this story moved you, don't let it end here. Like this video, share it, comment your thoughts below, and subscribe to Black Legacy for more powerful stories that shine light where silence once lived. Because justice doesn't happen in darkness. It begins when stories like this are told.